but it was a USAPL meet, and it was for the Ladies of Iron, the United Ladies of Iron. The
Oh, I just
Washington one.
announced that a week or two ago in Connecticut.
Yep.
Which state? Washington.
Yeah. So I was legitimately like thrashed. One meet, not even like it wasn't even like a morning session and an evening session. It was just I guess it was an afternoon session, 2 racks, and I was like, I do not know how. Like, let's say we're doing nationals. That's like 2 to 3 times a day, multiple racks, and I was just like, oh my god, Geno's a goddamn Iron Man. Like, it was crazy.
I, I have to learn to, there's a few tricks how to keep the voice without the voice falling apart. I always tell people you have to get as much sleep as you can. You don't drink alcohol after the competition is over. That's another thing that I've always had to deal with at Worlds. All the juniors lifted, right? And they're done, and they're all drinking in the lobby of the hotel, and or all the masters lifters, whatever. And I'd come in, and they'd see me. I used to try to sneak into the hotel, and they'd see me and wave me over. Now, if I just blow them off and wave them over, I'm the obnoxious one. You know what I mean? I'm the bad guy. So I can't not come over, and be rude if they've waved me over. Then it's, oh, you think you're too good to come over and drink with us? So I got to come over. And I have, it's called the Irish goodbye. I would come, they would give me the shot. They were all doing shots. I would do the one shot. And as soon as I did the shot with them, they would scream and yell. And then everybody would go back to their talking. And I would literally walk backwards until I hit the hallway and turn and get to the elevator. And you know what? They have no idea that I was only there for 4 minutes. They think I was drinking with them the whole night because they remember me first coming over and doing the shot. But I can't drink every night of a 10-day competition and function the next day. It's impossible. So you drink a little. I drink hot water with honey, and it coats the throat. That works. And a lot of times, I will turn the speaker, the mixer. I will turn the volume up louder, and then I hold the microphone away from my face, okay? So that it's just normal because it's been turned up loud. And if I need to scream for national record, when I hold it to my face, it's already loud and it comes in louder because I'm modulating and I'm working with the volume that's already been turned up, so I don't have to put that stress on my throat.
Right.
Also, yeah, you also have to learn to when you scream, you don't scream from the back. If you scream from the back of the throat, your voice will be hoarse within 4 hours. You have to scream from the diaphragm and let it come out from the diaphragm, and you're giving the throat a break so that you don't have that raspy voice after the end of 2 or 4 days with 3 sessions and 1,000 lifters at a competition. So there's a few tricks to the trade that you learn over time.
I'm gonna have
Yeah.
to come out and job shadow.
Yeah. Job
Do
shadow.
a job shadow session.
So I like that we got to some advice because we always try to get advice for people. So that's advice for new MCs. Are there any
Oh yeah.
like mistakes that you've made along the way in your MC career that you wish that you could do over, or you can put a word to the wise for people who are new in the game that like, hey, this is something you should probably avoid besides the voice control and not drinking the night of the show.
Yeah, one would be just don't scream from the back of the throat or you're sunk. Uh, Two would be certain people, not everyone. It's the 80-20 rule again. Certain people, if you don't pronounce their name correctly, take that very personally.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
And, I never understood why I'm at a world competition. I'm trying to announce names from every country in the world. And, I may screw a couple of them up and some of them don't care, and I'll go up and I'll ask them later, and they say, "Oh yeah, that's fine. You were close enough." And some of them are highly insulted that I didn't get their name right, and many of them will send their family member over to me and say, "You announced his name wrong the first time it came out. It's said so and so." And most people are polite, but some people cop a real attitude. Like, how could you screw that up? You're getting his name wrong. Like, I'm sorry, I'm doing my best. It used to be when I would go to World, I would walk around the lobby the night or two before the competition, and I would look for the country. They wear jackets with their country name on it, and I'd look for who the coach was because the coach usually spoke English, and I would say, "Can you please tell me how to say these four Polish names?" And then he would tell me, and I would write it down phonetically next to their name. Well, after doing that for many, many years, I learned how to say a lot of the names, and some of them I was just winging, you know.
Yeah.
And if they came up and corrected me, fine, I took it. But so try to get their names right. Another thing I would say, I don't mean this from a negative standpoint, but from a positive standpoint, try I've already I've spoken about this. Engage the audience. If you want to be successful, engage the audience. I don't care if you're engaging them with light humor or you're engaging them by telling them what was wrong with the list and what the cards mean and what the rules are, and go on and on and on. That's a big help, rather than just standing up there and saying lift is good. I mean, that's why the guy asked me to come into that little gym in Rockaway. He said the guy was up there and he'd say, you're 200 kilos, 440 pounds. Lift is good. Lift is not good. And, and then after you hear that for 8 hours, you want to blow your brains out, and that- and that's all he could say. And I got a funny story, a funny story about that. This is when our warm up room, pipe and drape, the curtains, right? Pipe and drape used to have like a 6-foot pipe and drape behind our table where we had all the scorecards, because we were doing everything manually on scorecards. And the pipe and drape had one slit down the middle. And this one coach kept sticking his head out where the two of us were announcing. And he would say, "What's the weight on the bar?" And the guy would tell him. And he'd stick his head out and say, "Who's the next lifter?" And he just, he did this for like an hour. And finally, finally, he goes, "What's the weight on the bar?" And Dave had enough. He said, "I just fucking told you. It's 200 kilos." And the guy pulls his head behind the curtain. And about a minute later, he sticks his head out and he says, "You could be a little nicer, you know." And Dave, am I allowed to swear? Dave goes, "What the fuck did you say to me?" And he stands up and he knocks the whole table over. The whole curtain goes over. Billy Clayton has to separate the two of them because they're brawling. You got to you got to you got to appease a lot of people in a lot of different ways. I did a Canadian National Championship once, and my friend Bonnie Rempel is her name, and I announced her name Bonnie Rempel because I thought that's what it was. And during the break, I see this old grandmother walking down this tiered stadium, holding onto the railing step by step. It took her 10 minutes to get down, and she goes, "Hey, come here." She goes, "Come here." She goes, "That's Bonnie Rempel, not Rempel. Now you get that right." So you never know how people are going to react, and then of course I get blamed sometimes. If somebody doesn't make their lift, they don't get out in 60 seconds, and I'll say lift. And the parents are in the front row and they'll go, "How come? You didn't call his name." And they're screaming, "You didn't call his name. You didn't do this. You didn't do that." I said, "I called the name and I told him he has 60 seconds. I said, if he didn't make it, that's his issue." And they scream and yell at me, and they're hanging from the ropes. Make sure you always announce when there's, even though it rarely happens, 3 minutes before the next flight, 3 lifters before the next flight, you have to say no more changes to the next flight. And make sure you always say that, even if you say it afterwards, because somebody will come along and say, "Oh, the announcer never said it, so I'm making my change now." And we're halfway through the next flight, and I say it every time. Don't you even try to say I didn't say it because you want to change your number. And it's have you guys ever come across somebody that turns in their first? Now I blame this on the person doing the weigh-ins in the morning, but have you ever come across anybody that's turned in their opening attempts after weigh-ins by putting it in pounds instead of kilos?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, 100%. The last meet I
Yeah.
competed in, a kid did that, and he showed up, and they had 400 kilos on the bar for a squat, and he was like a 165-pound lifter, and he's looking at it, and he's like, "What?
Why?
Why?
Why
Why
is
is
this
this so
happening?
much weight?"
Most of no, you're right. I'm glad you've experienced that. Most people doing the weigh-in in the back room would say, that's pounds. You got to do kilos. I don't think you can do that. But if the guys or the girls not really paying attention, it slips through. And rules are rules. The guy's sunk. He has to open up with that weight. He can't change it. He go down, and he's sunk for the rest of the competition. Now, hopefully that doesn't happen very often. I've only seen it a couple of times, but it's not a fun scenario when that does happen. I can tell you that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
just
You know,
double,
one of
Yeah,
the
over
when
guys,
double your max.
yeah, when you were hoping to squat 460 pounds for your third attempt and you show up with 880 on the bar and you're like, "Oh no, I've made a terrible mistake."
you're an 82.5 kilo lifter.
Yeah, it's
You
funny
know
you
what?
mentioned like calling their name or announcing it over and over again. Like there's a classroom adage where like if you haven't said it 3 times, then you just haven't said it. Like you just have to repeat yourself a
Uh,
lot, you know?
I'm happy to hear that you giving me the experience coming from a classroom, because if somebody's not coming out, I will make sure I say their name at least 3 times.
Uh,
Sometimes I'll go up to 6 times, so that everybody in the audience hears me, and there's no excuse
yeah.
when this guy doesn't come out. I'll even do the famous line when I've announced now tell me if you get this joke now. When I've announced the guy 3 times and he doesn't come out, and I'll say, Bueller. Remember the movie? Ferris Bueller's Day Off? And the audience laughed. And I'm always making references to movies quite often. I'll do lines from the Terminator. If somebody's last name is Connor, I'll say, Sarah Connor, is she here? I'll be back. And people, I got that one. Some guy's name is Brody, and I'll call him Chief Brody, and I'll say, you're going to need a bigger boat. That's a
Yeah.
line from Chief Brody from
From
Jaws.
Jaws. Yeah.
I think if I didn't entertain myself a little with some of those things, I would go insane doing this every weekend for the amount of hours that I do. But sometimes I just have fun with their names. Somebody's last name is first name is Wyatt, and I'll call them Wyatt Earp. And hey, Sheriff, we want you out of town by sundown. He's being coached by Doc Holliday. I love to have fun with the names, but you have to be careful. There are some people. There was one girl, her last name was Achilles, and I made some comment about Achilles' heel, and the husband was irate, came down irate, said, "Stop saying that." Like, all right,
All
fine.
right,
Yeah, yeah.
my bad.
Just it was just light humor. I'm sorry. So, but you know what some people do. I like when people do. There are times in the audience when people will try to heckle me, and the great thing is I have the microphone. They don't. No, nobody hears what they're saying. The guy will say, "Well, yo," blah, blah, blah," and I'll go and I'll lean in and I'll say, "You know what everybody hears right now when you say that? They hear blah, 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 blah. Nobody can hear what you're saying." So over the years I have gotten a little uh a little less. In the beginning I was just so afraid of offending anybody. Now anything I say, I never say anything with the intentions of being mean spirited or hurtful. So if they take it the wrong way, I'll say okay, but don't start heckling me in the middle of a competition. I'm doing my best up there.
Yeah.
Yeah.